I pulled the 80 degrees and brought it to Cheyenne, but they wouldn't let me on the airplane with it. Okay, a little bit about me. You know, one of the things, as I said, I was born and raised in Montana, born and raised on a farm. Things I'm the youngest of 5 children. And I always say, you know what? Since there was one boy and 4 girls in the family, that my dad was the first EO employer that I ever had. So I can guarantee you, I could have kept up with you when I was younger. Now I have a little more difficulty because when you turn 29, you get a little slower. But other than that, one of the things after I finished my I did is I worked for 8 years in a ocean. How's this? Can you hear me now? All right, let me try this again. Okay. One of the first full-time positions that I had was in an institution working with the emotionally disturbed and individuals that had drug alcohol problems. And so I did that for many, many years. Okay, then what happened is actually I became a single mother of a 6-month-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. And at that point in time, I decided to go back and get my master's degree, which I did. Okay, then the next thing that happened is after I finished my master's degree, I was actually offered a position as the education director of a women's prison. And I said, oh, I need to think about this for a little bit. So I ended up turning it down. And one of the stories that I always tell is that I called my parents and I said, Mom, guess what? I turned down the position. There was this total silence at the end of the telephone line. And she said, Cheri, what are you and the kids going to do? I said, well, I thought I'd come back and live with you and Dad. You know, I thought it was hilarious. She never did laugh. She never did laugh. But then after that, what I did is I was offered a position at the University of Montana Western as a faculty member, and I never looked back. I loved higher education, and it has been my career for over 25 years. Now, one of the things, when I decided to go into administration, I needed to make sure that I had completed my doctorate, which I did. After I completed my doctorate, then I went on to become a dean of education, business, and technology. After that, I was a provost and academic vice chancellor up at Havre. Now, here's a question. How many of you have ever been to Havre, Montana? Now, I have to tell you, Havre, Montana is in the middle of Montana, right up next to the Canadian border. And one of the things when you drive into Havre, you'll always notice that the sagebrush lean. That's because the wind always blows there. And one of the neatest things that I thought is that our chancellor and our vice chancellor for business and finance actually had this automatic starter for their car, and that was because it was so cold that they would make sure that they started their car in advance before they went out there. And so I thought, oh, I need one of those for my pickup. I thought, oh, this is great. But anyway, then after that, what happened is after I was a provost up in Havre, I actually got an email from an individual that I knew very well. She had moved down to New Mexico, and actually I had been her supervisor for many, many years. And she said, you know what, Cheri? Okay, I want you to take a look at something. Okay, the presidency is open at NMSU Alamogordo, which is a comprehensive community college in New Mexico, because a couple things have happened. One is the former president has left. He got into a little bit of difficulty with the Board of Regents and the president of our system. And she thought that I would be a great fit down at the institution. And so what I did is I applied, interviewed for the position, and actually I got the position. I have now been the president down there for, a little over 4.5 years. I will say this, I have really enjoyed it. I really have. And they like me as well. But one of the things that they, when I was hired, that they asked me to do, they said, okay, here's what we want you to take a look at. We want you to increase the enrollment because the funding for all New Mexico colleges is that it's based on your enrollment. So one of the things is we had seen very static enrollment, so we needed to increase that enrollment process. We did that. In fact, as you take a look at my Vita, you'll know that we have doubled our enrollment. And in fact, that was itself was a very much of a challenge, because when you increase your enrollment at a time when the state is decreasing its funding for higher education, you have some challenges ahead of you. Okay. The other thing that they asked me to do was they asked me to increase the partnerships with the surrounding area. And we have done that. We've worked very, very hard with that. You know, one of the things, let me tell you an example. One of the things that the community wanted in Alamogordo is they wanted more access to career and technical education. And so I had a lot of experience in that area, particularly coming from both Dillon and from Havre. And I said, okay, great. So one of the things that we do is we actually appear before the higher education subcommittee about what we need to do or what we want in our capital projects. And they make the recommendation to the legislature of what they approve. So anyway, they said to me, okay, Cheri, here's the deal. Okay, if you can show the community can provide the match and they vote in a general obligation bond, we'll go to the legislature and ask them to match what you need. Well, I will say this. I was maybe just a little bit stupid at the time, but you know, I think I can do anything with the right team. I really do. So anyway, I said, okay, we'll do that. So anyway, all the community leaders got together. They went out and visited with their friends, with their relatives. They called people on the telephone, and we passed that GO bond level by over a 70% margin. Now, the reason that's big, because I happen to live in a county called Otero County, and we're known for never passing anything. And we did pass it. So anyway, one of the things that we have been able to do is also, obviously, we have increased our career and technical education. We have now a brand new facility. In fact, it's a second facility that is now LEED Gold. And we offer automotive technology, alternative energy, and welding in that facility. The other thing that we have done is we have made a significant investment into the facilities of the campus. We have updated many of the classrooms. We have updated our central patio. And you know, one of the things that I always say to individuals at the campus, I said, you know what? Here's what we have. It takes a while for students to realize what a great academic programs we have and what great teachers we have. But it only takes 20 seconds for students and their parents to walk onto a campus and see or make some generalizations about what they think that campus is all about. So we work very hard on making sure that we look like an institution of higher education, and that's what we do. So the next question becomes, well, why Cheyenne? What introduces you? What intrigues you about LCCC? Well, let me be very upfront. It is not very often that presidencies come open. It isn't. Okay, there are very few presidencies, and I will say this. You know, when I take a look at the other individuals who are competing for this position, they're very well qualified, and they come with a background in higher education, just like I do. So when this type of position opens up where you see some outstanding faculty and staff, where your research shows that you have programs that far exceed other programs at some community colleges. The other thing is that certainly you look at an institution saying this location is a great fit for me. It truly is. I have a lot of relatives and friends still in the Northwest. And so this is a great area for me. And the other thing, you also take a look at are there some potentials that one should work at? You bet. And those are the types of things that you find from your initial research. You find out more research from other individuals that are involved in the campus. So that's why I'm here. Let me open it up for questions. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, now there I am. So people have given me questions before it started, and then a few have handed me. If you think of any questions while we're going along, feel free, and I can walk around and gather some questions as we're talking. Other things might come up. But one of the first questions that I have is, what do you believe is the one thing you can bring to LCCC that other candidates cannot?
Okay. What can I bring to LCCC that other candidates cannot? Well, one of the things that's a hard question, because obviously when you take a look at the resumes of the other candidates, they're all qualified as well, and they have an extensive background in higher education. But this I believe I can bring to LCCC. One is I have great experience in higher education, not only as a faculty member, but as an administrator. Okay, and I call on those experiences a lot. The other thing is that I have a huge commitment to students who need to develop their way into higher education. I am a firm believer that individuals who take themselves from high school through higher education, not only do you see a lower unemployment rate, but you see higher salaries. The other thing is that you take a look at workforce development. And one of the things that I believe that higher education does, and I ascribe to, is it helps make a better prepared individual to be in today's workforce. And one of the things we have to be cognizant of, what I train for today will not be what I typically do 20, 30 years from now. It's an ever-changing economy, and we need to make sure that we stay up with that as well. The other thing is I like to believe that one of the things that I do is I really try to stay up with what's happening nationally. I follow the trends carefully, and I expect others within the institution to do the same. And that's what we do. And so like for example, one of the things that we have right now that institutions of higher education really didn't have to focus on before is how do we ensure that students that come to our institution complete their goals. Now, this is called the completion agenda. And realistically, one of the things that we need to take a look at as an institution, we need to make sure that we provide the data that says this is where we're going. As community colleges, we need to do a much better job of defining what completion means, because we have had a tendency to define completion the same way that four-year institutions define completions. And so we have to be careful of this. So these are the sorts of things that I believe that I bring. And also the other thing that I would say that I bring to an institution is a commitment to professional development. I believe in professional development not only for the faculty, but for the students and for the staff.
Thank you very much. How will you make an impact among the student population within your first few months of LCCC if elected?
How will I make an impact on the student population? Well, let me just talk about some of the things that I have been able to do as not only a faculty member, but as an administrator. You know, one of the things when I happened to have lunch with the administrators that report to me, and one of the things I talked about, you know, as a faculty member, you have intimate knowledge. Well, I shouldn't use intimate. You have a strong knowledge of individuals who are in your classes. Okay, as you become an administrator, you have to really focus on ways that you can make sure that you're interacting with the students. And what are the different ways that you can do that? Okay. One is, like for example, we have an orientation, and in fact, a student orientation. In fact, one of the things that we have done a little bit differently, we actually have mandatory student orientation. Now, it is not necessarily a show and tell, but what we do is we engage the student in a variety of different activities to make sure that they feel a part of the institution. The other thing that I believe that your president absolutely has to do is meet on a regular basis with the student leadership. And so one of the things that I always try to do is I make sure that I have an open door for the student leadership, and also that we set aside certain times when we can meet with the leadership of the student population. Now, one of the things that happens is this allows your administration to really hear about what the students see as a real need. Okay, what would they like to see differently happen at the institution? Now, some things you can do, some things it takes a little while to do, but if you're not hearing these things, you don't really know what students need. Let me give you an example. One of the things that the students said to us is, she said, you know what, Cheri? I should say, you know what, Dr. J? Okay, what we need is better lighting on this campus. So what we did is one night after it was dark, the facilities manager, myself, and the vice president for business and finance walked around the campus to see what the students were talking about. And you know, there were some areas, the areas that they pointed out where we needed more lighting so they would feel more safe and secure, okay, needed to be fixed. So those are the types of things that we have been able to do. The other thing that the student leadership does is, one of the things is they hold what they call these town meetings, and they try to hold these at least once a month or once every other month. And what they do is they have certain subjects that they cover during this particular time. Like, for example, the last one was financial aid. And what I always try to do is, I'm always there, the other senior leadership is there as well, so that if the students have any questions, we're there to address them. If they have any concerns, we're there to listen.
Thank you. What is your knowledge and experiences with service learning?
With service learning. One of the things with service learning is that what you expect individuals to do is, you have your faculty and your academic VP are the ones that really lead that. Now, with service learning, what we did when I was at the University of Montana Western, that was actually led by one of our faculty members. Okay. Now, certainly, whenever he asked us to do something, this is what we did, because he was a great mentor for us. Was I engaged in that? Did I have that component in some of the classes that I taught? Yes, I did. Okay, as an administrator, I believe that what the administration needs to do is they're making sure that they're providing the resources for the faculty and the staff to be able to implement service learning, because you believe it's important.
Thank you. Morale and transparency are buzzwords on our campus. How would you propose to get everyone on campus, faculty, staff, administration, to be a part of the solution?
Okay. Well, let me talk a little bit about how we addressed these types of issues at the campus where I'm at. One of the things is that you want people to really believe, and students to really believe, that their campus is the place of higher education, that it looks like a place where people want to come and further their learning. So I would say one of the things that I noticed when I first walked onto campus is that some individuals, in my opinion, did not have a pride in place. Okay, now wait, let me give you an example. Okay, one of the things we did is we walked around the patio, which is actually the central location for the campus. And I like to call that, what that used to be, I called it this is our easy bake oven. Okay, it wasn't covered, and during the summer, we didn't use it. Now, please realize, it gets very, very hot in southern New Mexico. So realizing in the summer, we will see temp when it's down in the low 90s, it's cool. It's cool. Okay, so realistically, what we had to do was take a look at how do we need to reconfigure that central area so that not only we're proud of it, okay, but the community is proud of it. The other thing we took a look at, are we making sure that our facilities are up to date? What do we need to do with our labs? Are there some things that we need to be doing to update those? We've been lucky enough to also build some new facilities that are absolutely beautiful. And when learning takes place in an environment that's very much up to date, not only do the students recognize this, but the faculty and the community recognize it as well. The other thing that I say that's really important is that your senior leadership needs to be open and they need to be friendly. Now, let me just say this. This is an easy thing for any campus president to do. You know, one of the things that I always say at orientation to the students, I said, you know what? I'm not always going to know your name. In fact, for the most part, some of the people where I get to know their name, you kind of think, ooh, that's kind of bad. But I said, you know, one thing you can always count on is I'm always going to acknowledge you, okay? And I'm always going to say hi. And what I expect in return is for you to say hi back to me. The other thing is your senior leadership always has to be positive. Certainly we're going to have different opinions. But one of the things that individuals will always tell you, when I go into Cheri's office, the one thing that I know she's going to say to me is, okay, let's see your data, let's see your research, and you know what? I really don't care what happened 10 years ago. I want to know about a solution on how we go forward with where we need to be. So those types of things, in my opinion, really help morale. Oh, let me give you another thing. Okay, one of the things that I do is actually facilities reports to me. So one of the things that I do once a semester is I make sure that I have breakfast with all the facilities folks. Now, I know that sounds like a small thing. It really does. But you know what? For the most part, these are what we call the non-exempt employees. And they are just as important to the campus as anybody else. And so what you want to make sure is that you listen to them, you see what their concerns are. Is there anything that we need to be doing? Let's do it. Morale. What would be another thing? You know, one of the things I would say is this. And when I first got to Alamogordo, and I use this analogy quite a bit, so if I repeat myself, please excuse me. One of the things when I took a look at faculty salaries, I wanted to crawl under the table. I really did. They were so low that I was like, no wonder we're having trouble keeping and recruiting faculty who have great knowledge and ability, not only in their content area, but have teaching experience. So what we did is we worked very carefully to make sure that we brought those up to where they needed to be. We brought up the salaries of our part-time faculty, who are very, very important to any community college, because we really want to make sure that they are there in our classroom and sharing knowledge and experiences with our students. So I would say those would be the types of things that I've done to really help morale. Oh, one other thing. Go ahead. You know, the other thing is that, people like to be recognized for what they do. So one of the things that you want individuals to recognize others for when they've done something for the campus that's really outstanding, and you publish that. And you publish it a variety of different ways. You let the entire campus know that this individual did a great job with this. you send out thank you notes, whatever you need to do to try to recognize individuals for what they've done.
Thank you. Next question is, what will you do to ensure that students graduating from LCCC are college competent in writing and math, even if they are not going on to another college or university?
Well, you know, here's one thing that really kind of surprised me a little bit, okay? When I took a look at the percentage of individuals that had to take a remedial math course, even though they had completed high school, okay, I was a little surprised. I really was. So, here are some things that I believe that you should expect your president should do. Okay, one of the first things is that you should expect your president to support your faculty and your academic VP to take a look at what that data is saying. Are there some changes that we need to be making? Now, you as a president don't make the changes. Okay, if there's any changes to be made, you depend on the content faculty and your academic VP and your faculty senate to make those changes. What the president does, in my opinion, is points this out to, if they see it, and saying, okay, what are we doing about this? Are there some things that we should do differently? What type of training and development do we need to make sure that this doesn't happen? And the other thing that you absolutely have to do is you follow carefully students that transfer out of your institution and go to the next level. Okay, are they succeeding? Okay, if they're not, why not? If they're ill prepared, why not? And those are the types of things that we look at.
Okay, thank you. Do you support federally funded programs, and how will you ensure that these programs are as fully supported as other institutional programs?
Yeah, I fully support federal programs. Let's see. Let me give you a couple examples. You know, one of the things, we actually have a couple of federal grants that have just come into the institution. One has been in there almost a year, and one we just got. The first one is an HSI Title V grant, and that's a 5-year grant that what we did is we actually got $4.2 million for. And then we just had the external evaluator come in to take a look at how we were doing with the program. Okay, what are some of the things that we did? Okay, one of the things that I wanted to do was to make sure that the grant was driven by faculty members in the content area. So, for example, one of the things that we needed to do, this grant, when you take a look at the objectives, was to what we do with what we call fast-track developmental education. So one of the assistant project directors actually has a great background in developmental reading. So she was asked if she would take that on, and she said yes, and she was doing a great job. The other one, the project director, was actually a faculty member in technology and business. And so he was asked to take on the project director position for that, and he said yes. And again, he's doing a great job. So one of the things that we're doing, of course, is we're going to be doing some major renovations with grant money in the technology area. So he's doing that. He's handling that. The last thing that we just got was what we was an HSI STEM grant. Because one of the things that we absolutely are trying to do, we're actually an HSI institution. Let me explain. That's an Hispanic serving institution. And to be a Hispanic serving institution, you have to have at least 25% of your student population has to be Hispanic. Ours is 37%. Now, one of the things that we really know is that we haven't been able to really attract women and minorities into the STEM fields. So that's what we're really trying to do with this particular grant, is how do we make sure that we get more women and minorities into the STEM fields and have them succeed. So it's not only the recruitment component, it's a mentoring component, it's a tutoring component, it's a placement component, or the transfer component that we're working on with that one. The other one that's actually more of a state grant that we fully support is the Adult Basic Education Program. And one of the things, when you take a look at New Mexico, we actually have a very high percentage of population that do not complete high school. In fact, if you take a look at where we're at in the area that I'm in, we have a 55% dropout rate of high school students. And so we're really working hard, not only with the high school, but as a community college, to make sure that we try to reduce that percentage of high school dropouts. The other thing is, as you know, in a community college, we work with a lot of students who are first-generation college students. It's really important that we implement strategies to try to work not only with the students, but with the families. Let me kind of go back to my own personal background. One of the things I talk about, I was lucky that I had parents that believed in education. Well, my mother never completed high school. In fact, I was a junior in high school when she comes and says to the family, well, guess what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my GED and I'm going to become a nurse. And she did. And I tell that to GED students all the time. This is so important. That's why we're here. And we're here to help you fulfill whatever that mission is. So anything that helps support the students, anything that helps support the institution move forward in their needs area, I absolutely support and will go after full tilt.
Before I ask this next question, I forgot to mention there is water over there, so I don't know how you're doing. If your throat's getting dry, you're doing lots of talking, you're doing great, but if you want to take a drink, then you're okay.
Okay, thank you. I will just get a drink. How's that? One thing about presidents, they can talk forever. Right, Dr. LaRoe?
Okay, the next question I have is regarding communication and governance, and their structures on our campus are not working as effectively as we would like them to be. How would you address these issues?
Well, one of the things that I would say is this. In my opinion, you don't want a new president to come in and say, this should be the structure for this campus. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Okay, what the president wants to do is to work with the senior leadership team, work with the faculty senate, work especially with the board of trustees to see what would be the most effective leadership style for the institution and what should be done. Let me just give you a couple examples. In fact, I was asked this at lunch. Okay, what have I done as far as the leadership team at the institution that I'm at? Well, one of the things that we have is that we meet on a regular basis, the senior leadership team, and we're a much smaller leadership team than what you have here. So there's 4 of us. We get together on a regular basis. We hash through a variety of things. I'm just waiting for everybody to agree with me and say, Cheri, that's the best idea I've ever heard. But they never do that. But anyway, what we do is we take a look at what is happening within the institution. Are there some things that we need to be doing differently? We come to a consensus and we go forward. The other thing that I actually instituted when I came to the campus, and I hadn't been there very long, is we have what we call APAC. Okay, and what that does is that actually includes the entire leadership of the campus. It includes directors, it includes coordinators, and we get together every other week to take a look at what are some things that we need to be doing as an institution? What are some updates from everybody within the institution? Because one of the things that happens, if you're in athletics, you don't necessarily know what's happening over in the Computer Science Center. And so that's why we share this information. The other thing that this particular group does is we actually serve as a budget committee for the institution. So what happens is that individuals, we actually start in January, and it takes us the last part of January and pretty much all of November. They come in with the budget proposals. This is a time when all the members of APAC can ask questions. You have to be able to rationalize why you need to see an increased budget. I'm still waiting for someone to come in and say, you know what, Cheri, you give me way too much money. Please reduce the budget. I haven't gotten that yet, but I'm waiting. But anyway, that's what we do. So it's a budget committee. And so it's really a point in time when people can communicate what's going on. Everybody within the institution knows what's going on. And we also take a look at, are there certain things within the institution that we need to be taking a look at as a group, and we do.
Thank you. The next question is, what will you do to improve the reputation of the college?
What would I do to improve the reputation of the college? Well, one thing, when I certainly take a look at information from LCCC, I would already think you have a great reputation. Now, I would say this, is that certainly I would think that your new president would work very, very carefully with the legislators. They would work very, very carefully with the media. They would work very, very carefully with the foundation board. And they would work very carefully with the community to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, to make sure you know what direction the institution wants to be able to go forward with, and to really increase that communication structure within that. Did that answer the question?
That did. Thank you. Next question is, what is your knowledge about PTK, Phi Theta Kappa, and how does it fit into the college mission?
Phi Theta Kappa. Yes, I happen to know quite a bit about Phi. Oh, who's from? All right, all right. Do you know that we actually have the induction ceremony for Phi Theta Kappa this Sunday at 4 o'clock? Guess who's their guest speaker is? No, and actually, I've had the, they've asked me several different times to be their guest speaker, and I'm thrilled. I am just absolutely thrilled. One of the things that we believe in is that Phi Theta Kappa is an honorary society for the institution. And so what we want to do is make sure as many students who are eligible to be a member of Phi Theta Kappa join and be a part of Phi Theta Kappa. There is nothing better, if you haven't ever done this, going to an induction ceremony for Phi Theta Kappa. And not only do you see the students there, but you see the parents, the significant others, the children, you name it, the relatives of those individuals that are being inducted into this honorary society. And it makes everybody so proud, and it should. So, do I believe that it's an important part of the organization of any community college? I do. Is it something that I believe that you should expect your senior leadership to promote? I do. Okay, one of the things that's kind of interesting is that Phi Theta Kappa will have different leadership opportunities. Now, one of the things that we have struggled with at the institution is making sure that organizations are more involved. And that's one thing that you have here. When I take a look at the number of student organizations that you have at this campus, I'm like, wow, this is absolutely great. But one of the things that, in my opinion, you should expect your senior leadership to do is to support these leadership opportunities for Phi Theta Kappa. The other thing that we do is this. We actually, each year, we have the winners of the All USA competition. They submit the information in for this. And so one of the things that we do is we always make sure. Now, this is actually a ways away from Alamogordo because it's up in Santa Fe. So that's up in northern New Mexico. We're down in southern New Mexico. Now, what we do is for the All USA winners, we make sure that we take them out to lunch. And not only do we take them out to lunch, but we take their parents out to lunch as well. Okay. And yes, you expect your president to pay for it, and he or she does. Guaranteed, guaranteed. But you do that, and you help those students be able to do that, and they see it as something that they are just so proud of, and you're so proud of as an institution that they are being inducted into this honorary society. I think it's great. That's just great.
Thank you. Next question is, please describe what you would do during your first month at LCCC, should you be the chosen candidate.
Okay. If I were the chosen candidate, what would I do during my first month? Well, there's a couple things that you really anticipate when you come in as a new president. Number one, who knows the members of your community? The members of your board, the members of your foundation, the president of your Chamber of Commerce, and the CEO of the major businesses of that particular region. What you want to have as a new president is make sure that they know who you are and you know who they are. The other thing is you absolutely have to set aside time to not only visit with the leadership of the campus, but with other individuals within the campus. And you need to know what's happening. And not only that, the new president has to know what's in that policies and procedures manual because it's all just a little bit different for every campus that you go to. That's what I do within the first one.
Thank you. Next question is, do you believe that with responsibility comes accountability? And when it's not present, how do you fix that?
With responsibility comes accountability. You know, one of the things that you can do as a president, you can always delegate certain items, but you can't delegate ultimate responsibility. That's an absolute given. You know, one of the things that I believe that's always the most difficult thing, one of the things that individuals will always ask is, what's one of the hardest decisions you've ever made? Well, as a campus president, I don't care who you are. One of the hardest decisions you'll ever make has to do with personnel. It just happens to be that I have a recent example of something. One of the things as we had this search, and actually this particular person happens to report to one of the senior officers. So anyway, as you will interview these people, certainly as the president, it goes from the search committee, then it goes to the president, and the president has to make the final decision. And one of the things that I said to one of my senior officers, I said, now, wait a minute. Are you sure you want to do this? Okay, because when I take a look at this individual's background, when I take a look at this individual's leadership skills, when I interview this person, I'm not sure that this is a person that you want. And I was said, what would happen if we didn't hire this person? I said, we have to reopen the search. Okay. I said, no, Cheri, here's what we want to do. We want to hire this person, and I guarantee we will do a lot of training and development to bring this person up to where this person needs to be. Unfortunately, no matter what the training and development was, no matter how many times you communicated with this person, the person could just not be brought up to the level that this person needed to be at. So, should I put all the blame on the senior officer and the search committee? No. Because the final decision, the final responsibility has to rest with your president. And yes, I made the decision. We have to make sure that we have the right documentation, which we did, and that we let this person go. That's a hard decision because guess what? This person typically has a family. This person has a house. And what you're doing is you are really affecting the future career of this individual. So, any president cannot delegate ultimate responsibility.
It looks like we're wrapping up, and if we could just ask one more of these questions at random order. What is your vision for Laramie County Community College? And I notice your mic's getting a little soft, so if you want to take mine, then you can.
You know, one of the things, oh, everybody can hear me now, can't you? Whoa! You know, one of the things that I take a look at is actually Laramie County has a strategic plan. Okay, I've looked at it. Okay, I'm not sure that the institution has spent a lot of time measuring where they're at with the strategic plan. Some areas have done a great job, other areas haven't. So I would say this. What is my vision for Laramie County? Number one, you need to make sure that you have a great strategic plan. Now, let me just explain a little bit what I mean. You know, one of the things when I came into Alamogordo, we had a strategic plan that we had to have for our last accreditation visit. I said, well, how many of you have seen this? Guess how many people raise their hand? One. Okay, so what we did is we did an assessment of where we were at that strategic plan. Then the next thing that we did is we actually put together a team that developed a new 5-year strategic plan. And I said, you know what? There are just a few rules that I would like you to stay within. Number one, the objectives have to be measurable, because if you don't know where you're going, guess what? You can't measure anything, okay? Number two, make sure you only give me 5 goals, because if you stretch this out forever, then nobody knows what the heck the goals are. And with each goal, don't give me any more than 5 objectives. So what we did is we made sure that the entire campus community was a part of this strategic plan. Then what we did is that they would then meet with the ex officio members, which I would call the administrators, because what we had to do was then come to a consensus of what we could do. And the other thing that we had to do is anytime you have an objective, for the most part, it costs you money. It really does. And so we had to make sure that we allocated the money appropriately. What can we afford to do? What can we afford not to do? And let's come to a consensus on this. And then every year what we do is we assess where we're at. What have we done well with? What have we done not so well with? Are there some things that we need to change? Because I will tell you this, sometimes you come up with these measurable objectives and you assess them and you think, where in the heck did that come from? And I sure as heck couldn't measure it. So let's change it. Let's change it. So what would be my vision? My vision would be is to really take a look at where the institution is at according to their strategic plan. Okay, how do we need to reassess what's in that strategic plan? And let's go forward from there. And let's make sure we allocate the appropriate resources to be able to do that. Yes, I am a big believer in strategic planning. I really am. You know, it's kind of like a map to me. You know what? If I open up a map and I don't know where the heck I'm going, guess what? I'll never get there. So yes, I believe that would be the first thing I would do, and that's my vision. One of the things, it has to be, folks, a shared vision of everybody is on board saying this is where we need to go to move the institution forward.
Thank you, Dr. Jimeno. Can we please have a nice round of applause for her to welcome her this afternoon? Thank you very much. Now you can have a big drink of water and a nice deep breath. Thank you. We are keeping these cards with questions. There were 2 questions that weren't asked, and so I'm going to keep these in my hand. And I believe Melissa has the other questions. We're gonna keep those on file. Now, would you please take a moment, if you would, and fill out the yellow sheets that you have. Carol has more, I believe, if you would like to pick up more. We would like your feedback concerning Dr. Jimeno and some things she had to say to us this afternoon. And now where are you off to next? You're meeting with faculty and staff, I believe. Yes, and then we will see you at dinner. Yes, thank you very much. I want to thank you on behalf of the Board of Trustees for being here. This was exciting to see so many people here and being involved in this process. And we hope to see you all again tomorrow for our next candidate. Thank you very much.